Right. Good morning again. Just make sure, can you view my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we
Great.
can, Juan Pablo, yes.
Okay, I have decided to call this short talk Avoiding Scientific Misconduct in Academic Writing. I have focused the talk on what a university student should know, because there are many different kinds of scientific misconduct, and we could spend hours literally talking about them. It's very important for you to have strong professional ethics, since you will become English teachers in the future, and it's important for you to be aware of the different ways in which you could be committing scientific misconduct. Otherwise, when your students may do something inappropriate and you don't know how to deal with that, you could be in trouble. Also, if you commit scientific misconduct on purpose, and then you see that your students are doing the same, you will not be able to complain or tell them to do otherwise. Okay, first, we need to look at a possible definition. What's scientific misconduct? So falsification, fabrication, and misappropriation of information while conducting research or writing a research paper, whether or not it was premeditated. And that last part is very important, because ignorance will not be an excuse. So we need to be clear about this. So even if you're not fully aware that you may be doing something wrong, if you break a rule, you could be in trouble. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, here we have some possible reasons for scientific misconduct, according to Baiget 2010. I just included a few of them because he lists more, but I included those that may be applicable to students somehow. First, we have a lacking intellectual integrity. For example, you don't have the skills, or you don't have the training to deal with scientific information correctly. Being ignorant about ethics, but once more, ignorance is not an excuse. Being arrogant, simply to say, "Oh yeah, I can go away with this, and no one will catch me." Just a second, I think someone is requesting to join. Okay, we're back. Lacking a moral conscience, I would say, when you're literally a bad person. Being dishonest, being incompetent for many reasons, being lazy, you don't have the time, and then you need to come up with a quick, easy solution. And being, like, this could be the less or the least likely of the cases, being mentally ill. So this was listed because there was a case of a famous researcher who wrote very good papers, but they turned out to be fiction. All the research happened on his mind. He had become insane, and probably he dreamed of all the research and then wrote the papers. Because when people tried to find the evidence about the conduct of the studies, there was nothing, and then they realized that he was insane, and all that good research was a product of his imagination. Okay, so I will refer to some general cases of scientific misconduct. As I said, this list is by no means exhaustive. There are many other cases, but I'm including only those that may be applicable to university students. They are not in a particular order. So when it comes to the seriousness or the severity of the case, that needs to be analyzed in context to make the necessary decisions. So we have a common and simple way of committing scientific misconduct, and that's inflating the list of references. That's basically listing more documents than you actually quoted in the manuscript. Okay, second. Okay, that's a way to try to trick people into believing that you really read a lot of information and that you analyze lots of papers to write your own. But then if you're including a reference, that means you quoted that in the body of your manuscript. In your case, for example, if those who are taking bibliographic research, you work with the MLA format. In that format, you work with the works cited, if I'm not wrong. And the keyword there is cited. If they are not cited, they cannot be listed as references. So it's important, for example, if you read a paper, I know this can be a bit complicated, but you need to check if you see a quotation, check that it's on the list of references and vice versa. Otherwise, that could be a problem. Okay, then we have committing plagiarism. Oh, there's a spelling mistake. It should be plagiarism in any of its forms. Sorry, it's plagiarism, it's misspelled. By the way, do you know what happens if you commit plagiarism at the university?
Yes.
So what happens?
Okay, we are supposed to have first of all a warning, then we have some several you know, I don't know how can I say, but yeah, I forgot the word how we can say that.
First you get a warning, then you
Okay.
get then you fail the first you get a warning and fail the assignment, then you fail the second time you fail the course, third time you are expelled for up to 5 years.
Well, at least according to the latest version of the university regulations, there's nothing about a warning. Actually, if we are orthodox in the application of the regulations, the first time you commit plagiarism, you fail the course. If you do it a second time, you are suspended for 1 semester. And if you dare to do it a third time, you will be expelled from the university. And we could devote a whole presentation to just plagiarism. I'm including just a few examples. For example, not providing citations for unoriginal material, not providing quotation marks for textual information, even if there are narrative or parenthetical citations present, producing a paraphrase that is very similar to the original source, translating a text following a word-for-word pattern. For example, if it's something you found in Spanish or French, and then you translate it and you follow a word-for-word pattern in the translation, that could be plagiarism. And also committing an act of self-plagiarism. For example, let's pretend that you turned in a paper for the humanities, and it happens to fit well into the objectives or the goals of a paper that you have to turn in another course. And you say, okay, with little or no changes, I could turn this in and I will save myself some time and effort. So that will be self-plagiarism because you're obtaining a double benefit for the price of one paper. And if you're going to be using something like that, you could quote it. But I would not suggest reusing the whole paper because that could be an ethical problem. Also, this happens in all levels. As I am the main editor of an academic journal at the university, last year I rejected 39 papers because of plagiarism. So far this year I have rejected 20 and counting. Okay, then we have fabricating quotes. For example, in your course, you have to write an essay, and you have to defend the topic. You have to propose arguments in favor of your thesis statement, but you fail to find information to support your ideas, and say, okay, what do I do? I cannot find good support for this. Sorry. And then you take, oh, people keep on joining. Okay, so let's imagine you cannot find that one source you're looking for. So you take a paper that has a topic that sort of deals with the topic you're writing about, and then you write a quotation about that paper, even though that was never said by that author. And that's hard to identify if you state it as a paraphrase. And that will be up to your conscience to do it the right way. You cannot make up information. If you're quoting something, it has to be there in the paper that is on your list of references. You also need to be careful not to distort the message of an author by quoting him or her. That could also be a problem. We have eliminating a name unfairly. For example, let's imagine you're allowed to work in pairs or groups to write a paper. And then one of you is in charge of turning in the last version of the paper. And let's imagine I don't get along well with Carlos. And since I am the one who's going to turn in the paper, I will delete his name so he gets into trouble and he gets a 0. Or I remove all the names and only leave mine so I get all the credit. Some people do that, and some people have done that. Oh, now this is becoming more and more common. Buying a paper to turn it in as your own. There are different websites online, and there are some even more illicit websites on the dark web that sell papers. And yeah, there are students who have resorted to this. Many years ago, I had to deal with a case like this, as a student who bought a paper on a certain web page, and he turned it in as his own. But there are programs and services that can help you identify that. At the university, we have Turnitin, and it has access to over 70 million papers, and it is ridiculously accurate when it comes to identifying documents. So even if they claim that since you're paying, that content is restricted and you will be safe, I'm sure the program will be able to identify that the paper is not original. Including a guest author. So let's remind once more that you're allowed to write a paper in pairs or in groups. And but I don't have a group, and I didn't have time to write my own paper. And then I tell one of you, okay, I didn't have the time. I was busy at work. I had a lot of situations. So please, I know you're working alone, so please let me include my name on your paper. I promise I will repay you later. Please scratch my back and I will scratch yours. Okay, that's an ethical problem. And it happens not only among students. I know cases about professors who have done this. And it's not just a rumor. I'm 100% that this has happened. A friend of mine told me about it. They say, okay, since I was about to retire, then the other person told me, okay, you no longer need this. Just let me have my name and delete yours. We have fabricating research results. So sometimes researchers or student researchers are worried that they may get a bad grade because their research failed somehow. But as long as you follow all the necessary procedures and you analyze the information well. Second. So whether or not a research is successful is not going to affect your being able to pass a course. For example, if it's a paper or if it were a thesis or a graduation project, as long as you follow a good set of procedures and you did it the right way, that will be fine. But sometimes people are worried, okay, I did not find what I was looking for, and then they manipulate the results so that all the research appears successful, and that's highly unethical. If all you did failed, then describe it and then propose recommendations for further research. Okay, maybe the next time some research like this could consider these alternative approaches. Okay, we have a term in English, coming up with a meat extender paper. So it's reusing an old paper by adding new information. For example, you have this old paper you turned in a course, and I say, okay, if I add extra information, a few more quotes, a couple of paragraphs, I can turn it in as something new. That could be a problem. The opposite case is called salami slicing. Let's imagine you have a long paper, for example, something you wrote in the humanities. And you say, okay, maybe I can take this chapter and turn it in as the essay for this course, or even take the different chapters and write papers based on them without any quote or any note indicating that that this new quote-unquote paper is based on some of your previous work. And this is, again, common among both students and professors, and even famous writers. And it's resorting to a ghost writer. Basically, it's having someone else write a paper for you. For example, you're a junior student, and your brother is a senior, and say, hey, brother, why don't you write a paper for me? I have no time. I'm not so good at writing. No one will know. And then your brother writes a paper for you, and you turn it in as your own. Or even there are people online who offer their services as ghost writers. And there are famous writers who have resorted to ghost writers as well. And actually, there are some authors that don't exist. So some publishing houses have hired ghostwriters, and they have created a name, and they publish books under that name. Actually, they made fun of this on an episode of The Simpsons, and actually they implied that J.K. Rowling was not a real person, and it was just a group of ghostwriters. There was some issue about that online, but it turned out to be false. But even though Homer and other people created a group of ghostwriters, and they started writing a novel to sell it. But at university, it will be basically having someone write for you. And I have heard professors talk about this and say, okay, I know you're a good writer, you have lots of publications, you don't need any more papers, so why don't you write something for me? And I know some people have done it. Okay, so here we have the references. Perhaps now we could have a space for comments, questions, or we can elaborate on something that may not have been clear.
Well, thank you very much, Juan Pablo. This was very, very illustrating, especially for, in this case that we have first-year students and we have fourth-year students. So the ones that are starting this university life, so they are aware of the many, let's say, mistakes that they can make without even knowing, but now they know. So we know they're not going to commit plagiarism. And for the future teachers that are going to graduate next year and going to start in the working life. And so I would like to, well, thank you again and open the floor for questions or comments. Okay, let me see. And I think that you can raise your hand if you want to participate. Okay. Any question or comment for Juan Pablo? Okay, Susana?
Okay.
Hello, Juan Pablo,
Yes.
again. Thank you so much for your talk and these amazing details that my students need to know, especially since they are first year students. I would like to for you to just repeat, like in a slower manner or something, the steps that what can happen if they commit plagiarism, please. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe I can look for the regulations, so we all can take a look at those. Just
Great,
a
thank
second. I have them handy. Okay, let's see. Regulations. Okay, I'm going to start sharing the screen again. All right. So can you see this?
Yes, we can. Maybe you can zoom it
Okay.
a little bit more, like so they make it a little bit bigger. Here we go.
Okay. And we have something important here. It talks about total or partial reproduction of documents that are turned in as if they were your own. So it's not about the amount of information that may not be quoted or reported correctly. So plagiarism can be a little or it can be a lot. Okay, so first scenario, if plagiarism is identified, the student fails the course. If that happens again, student will be suspended for 1 term. And if that happens a 3rd time, student will be expelled from the university.
Thank you. And then, Juan Pablo, is it another regulation that says, or I don't know, if they commit plagiarism, is there a way that their grades will be like marked so that maybe in the future, if they want to get a master's degree in another country, is this going to affect them because their grades are going to be marked or altered or not?
I think currently our regulations are not that specific. Probably they could document that in a file, but I don't think there's any specific regulation that states that will affect you in the future.
Perfect.
So it may or may not happen.
It may or may not.
It depends on the documentation process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Susana. And well, what I know from this, I mean, if a student is fails a course because of plagiarism, then that's going to affect the grade and the way that they can enroll for next semester.
If you have a scholarship.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you. And now we also have Fabiola Chavez, and she raised her hand. So Fabiola, can you please tell us your question?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it was not a question. It was more like a comment. I wanted to thank Professor Juan Pablo for this information that he's given us. To be honest, it's very useful because right now we're taking a course with Lindsay, as she just mentioned, Investigación. So yeah, right now it's definitely useful, and not only right now, but for the rest of my life. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. There's something else I would like to say about dealing with unoriginal information. For example, you could be quoting the material the right way, it's like author, year, page, quotation marks. But if you overuse quotation marks, that could also be a problem. Because if you're writing a paper, it's because you're trying to generate new knowledge. And sometimes you see these students' papers with huge block quotations, and it's just a few statements serving as transitions. That could also be a problem. And sometimes if you analyze that, it's like 60% of the paper is about, it contains quotes, and the rest is just a few transition sentences. So that could also be a problem. So textual citations should be saved only for those ideas that cannot be expressed in a better way with other terms. Like the wording is memorable, it is insuperable, so you leave it like that. Otherwise, you paraphrase.
Okay, thank you, Juan Pablo, and thank you, Fabiola, for the comment. And as you say, this is important information for the rest of our lives, not just for students, but also us as professors and you future teachers. And I would like to see if there's another question or another comment. But I think that, okay, Susana.
Sorry, it just came into my mind. Juan Pablo, do you have any tools or any recommendations, any links, any kind of material that you would recommend my students that are first-year students, that they can see, right? Also the seniors, the senior students can also see them, right? But for example, I know that the UNA library offers EndNote, right? That is it's a software that you can install in Word, and then it will give you a better, accurate APA 7th edition, right? All clean up version of your paper, but then you have to be able to really use it in an accurate way too. Or if there is another tool, like, I don't know if Purdue University, like if they can go in, I don't know if you can recommend them, especially because my students right now are taking courses that they have to be given papers with MLA and papers with APA, right? So they have to be able to manage both worlds at the same time. So I would like to see if you have any recommendations for them.
Okay, yeah, we have tools, open source tools. For example, we have Zotero. I don't know if you have heard about it. So you can create an account, and you can upload your sources there and export them in the format that you need. And I think there's also an installable version of Zotero that can be combined with Word. Like you said, there's the online writing laboratory by Purdue University. So they have good information.
Sorry, can you write them in the chat or maybe so that they can see them? Like, is that okay? If not, it's okay. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah. Let me. I will look for the URLs, and I will paste them in the chat. Okay, let's see. We have Zotero here. We have the online writing laboratory by Purdue University. And also you can use journal platforms as well. For example, let me show you well, using my journal. So most journals now use open journal system. So let's try any random journals. Well, this is Ensayos Pedagógicos. Well, all journals from the university work in technically the same way, and actually most journals that work with open journal systems have the same features. So, for example, let's try this. And we have this how to quote. Well, probably in this case, well, since these are Latin American authors, both last names appear here, so you may need to remove one. But we have this drop-down menu, like citation formats. And you see that there are a few choices: APA, Chicago, Harvard, MLA, for example, MLA. And you may need to adjust a few details, but that's something helpful. And most journals that work with this software have this feature. Just you only need to go to the main entry of the journal, and see that you can also download here a bibliographic record. So you see EndNote, Sotero, Mendeley, and BibText. So you download this, and you can upload to EndNote, Sotero, Mendeley, and the program will help you with the quotations and the citations.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Susana. I think that we have Lindsay, but before I give the floor to Lindsay, I wanted to add that that's why the MLA and APA have booklets, and they have their own online resources for students and for academics to use. And whenever I have taught a writing course, I tell my students, use the handbook, because it's not like I'm not asking to memorize it. I probably don't know everything from memory from MLA, and so you have to use it, highlight it, put post-its, and that's what they're for, right? So we use them, not to memorize them. Okay, Lindsay, your question?
Yeah, hello. Well, first off, I just wanted to share with you the first link that appears on the chat. It says Docencia una CSR right there. You have page 1 and page 2. You can see like the most updated version of the process that we professors have to follow if we find out that one of our students is messing around with plagiarism, let's say. So right there, you can see like the process we have to follow, and also the consequences, like step by step, like what can happen if a student plagiarizes once or twice or 3 times or 4 times. So right there, you can see like all the consequences. I was showing this to my students. I think it was last week that we were talking about this particular topic. And also, Juan Pablo, I wanted to ask you, since you are like in charge of this journal, and you were mentioning actually some of the numbers of the cases in which you have been finding out that people have been committing plagiarism, what has been your experience, Juan Pablo? Like, who are more likely to mess with plagiarism? Like, what has been your experience in this regard? What do you tell people? What do people tell you when you tell them like, hey, look, you are basically copy pasting this from a different source, it is not yours? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would say never say that will never happen to me, because there isn't a specific population that commits plagiarism. I have found bachelor students, master students, professors, even doctors, masters, people with licentiate degrees, and sometimes it may be premeditated or not. in most cases, it was not premeditated, but it was like the information was handled carelessly. And I have found people from this university, people from international universities. So I think anyone can be at risk of committing plagiarism. So we need to make sure, okay, whenever we're quoting something, or for example, sometimes we want to paraphrase, and we have the book or the chapter right next to us, and then we consciously or unconsciously are constantly looking at the original source, and we're tempted to imitate the grammatical structure and the content. Or you have, for example, Williams 2010, but you forgot the quotation marks, and then I tell them that's plagiarism, and say, why? The citation is there. I say, but how would I or any other reader know which parts are original and which parts are not? Actually, I found one of the latest papers I rejected was originally published as a book chapter, and the only change they made was changing the transition words, and everything else was the same. They, do you think I was born yesterday? This is an original, and it was a prominent author, a doctor, and he has lots of publications. And why would he do this? He doesn't need it. He's well known. He has lots of papers, books, chapters.
Okay, we have, I think another student raised his hand.
Yeah,
Two
it was
people.
me.
Mhm.
I was I wanted to come back to a little slice of your presentation, Mr. Juan. It was about salami
Slicing.
So that's very interesting, and I wanted to make a little comeback to that because I was thinking with the example that you just gave, would you call that salami slicing to just change the transitional words, or how would you call that or put that into your presentation?
Okay, that would be self-plagiarism.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, salami slicing, for example, let's imagine you write a master's thesis, and then you have okay, I'm going to write a literature review article based on my theoretical framework. I'm going to write a research article based on the whole thing, and I will find some other chapter and write a new article, and all is coming from the same thesis. And I play with the titles, and I add a few extra references, and I try to put makeup on everything so it looks brand new. And
Sure.
sometimes people say, okay, but I wrote that. Why do I need to quote myself if that's my work? Well, even if it's your own intellectual property, that doesn't mean you can use it indiscriminately. If you're going to reuse some ideas, well, you need to quote yourself. And I know it may be, or you may feel odd by quoting according to Zúñiga, and I am him, but I have to do it.
Sure, it's just the fact that it's another work of yours or of oneself.
Actually, a few years ago, I got an article, and it was from one of the authorities of the university at that time, and there was like this huge portion that came from another article this person had previously published. And say, I tried to be as diplomatic as possible. While we were reading your paper, we came across this other paper that you had previously published, and it happens to include this significant portion of text, and it's a literal copy of that, and that could be considered self-plagiarism. Say, okay. So never mind. I take back my paper. And
There's
was a
another
person with a
question.
doctorate. He was a doctor.
Yes, there's another question in the chat. Nelly LS is asking, what is the most shocking case that you have seen? Well, you have just told us a kind of shocking case, but if there's another case that you have experienced in your editorial life, maybe that you want to share.
Well, just yesterday, I was reading a paper sent by some people from Ecuador, and I just turned it in and I found nothing weird. And let's say everything is grammatical in the way it is written, but when you read it, like when it comes to semantics, there's something wrong. I say, okay, this is not the way you write a sentence in Spanish. And I started checking, and all the references were in Spanish. I say, that's not necessarily bad. But I checked the URLs and say, and look for the original article and say, but this is originally in English. Why is the reference in Spanish, even including the journal's name in Spanish? And I also found the articles in Indonesian, and they were translated into Spanish, and with weird publication names. Let's see if I have one of those. I actually shared that in a WhatsApp chat. There was this, yeah, the reference is in Spanish. And according to this person, there's a journal called Revista Científica de Matemáticas y Educación en Ciencias de la Pulpa. I don't know what pulp has to do with math. And when I looked at the title is in English, like, actually no, mejorar la cooperación de los estudiantes a través del aprendizaje cooperativo. And the article happens to be in Indonesian. And I don't want to undermine or criticize people's qualifications. I don't think there are many Latin Americans who are fluent in Indonesian. Of course, you can quote papers in any language that you can read. You can quote Japanese, you can quote Italian, you can quote French. But if you're writing in English, you will probably have to paraphrase and write the quotation in English. But the reference has to be in the original language.
Yes, that's quite a shocking and an interesting case, right? Because of that, now with technology that we have so many translation tools, probably they use Google Translate.
Check it out. I'm sharing the article in the chat. Try to read it. I dare say people can try to read something in Portuguese or Italian. It's similar to Spanish, and they can deal with that. But the only thing that Indonesian has in common with either English or Spanish is the alphabet. But you cannot guess any of the words, I'm sure. I have Fabiola Chavez.
Yeah, I just have a question because it's what you just said. If we have a source which is in a different language, what do you think that it would be better to just to paraphrase or to use a translator? Or what do you think that it would be better?
I would not use a translator because even if it's in another language, and if it follows the same grammatical structure as the original source, that could be plagiarism. And it's not a good idea to mix languages. You start writing in English and then you have quotation marks and you have Spanish or any other language. That's not the most elegant thing you can do. So I would always try to paraphrase and making sure I'm not distorting the original message. So you need to compare and make sure, okay, yeah, it's accurate enough. I'm doing justice to the original source.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if there's a final question or final comment.
I don't know if Austin had a question. I think he had raised his hand previously.
I don't think so. Okay, well, Juan Pablo, thank you very much. This was a very enlightening talk and a lot of information. And like I mentioned before, great for first-year students, amazing for fourth-year students. And for the professors here also that are present, because it's going to be very useful. And it was a very kind and friendly reminder that we must not be ignorant into these matters, and that if we are here at the university as teachers or as students, we should be in charge of that part of the knowledge and be conscious of our work and the way that we express our ideas and express others' ideas, right? And so I would like to thank you again, and thank you, Susana, Lindsay, and Laura, for being here as teachers, and for the students and other guests that were able to attend today's talk. And from la Comisión de Gestión de la Calidad del Bachillerato en la Enseñanza del Inglés, we want to thank you. And I normally don't use Google Meet, so I don't know if we have some sort of like gesture. No? Okay. So thank you very much.
No, I don't think it has reactions.
Reactions, yes. But no, yes, it was very enlightening. And I took some pictures because that's going to help us with the as evidence, and also the recording that you very gently offered. So we can also maybe put it on our social networks and share it with more people, right? With more professors that were not able to attend because today is a school day, so they're probably teaching.
Yeah, I will correct the presentation as well and share the PDF, and I will also share the link to the video with you as long as when it is
Awesome.
Processed.
Yes, no, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, students and professors, for being here. We actually made it on time. And so you can go on with your classes, Lindsay and Susana, and your respective students. Thank you. And Laura and Juan Pablo from Educología, thank you very much as well.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Juan Pablo and Ale and Lau and Susie for being here, and Ale and Lau for kind of coming up with this very useful space.
Yes, thank you so much, and enjoy your day.
You're welcome. You too. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.